I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, natural resource specialist at the Oxford Club. His website, energyandresourcesdigest.com. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Donald Trump continues to manipulate U.S. markets, whether he intends to or not. His latest statement, the U.S. dollar is way too strong, and there's been huge international reaction to that.
Yeah, and his next line was, it's killing us. So obviously he wants to make the dollar weaker. And at the same time, he's accusing China of waging a currency war on us. So that has everyone focused on the U.S.-China relation and what's going to happen there. Now there's talk of a trade war and stuff like that. So with him taking some wind out of the dollar like he did today, naturally precious metals are going higher, and they're important overhead resistance right now. As you and I talk, silver's over 17, gold's over 1,200. Usually they don't move over these things and stick. Usually there's some back and forth. And so we'll have to watch and see what happens there. But it looks like the bottom is in for those. And more than Trump, though, one thing is that all the big speculative funds went so negative on gold and especially silver recently. Now they have to unwind those trades, especially if the dollar's going lower. So that adds more urgency to it. And so we see these terrific moves that, I mean, not that long ago, you know, it would take weeks or even months for these things to unwind. Now the moves come fast and furious, and so we'll have to see what happens there. But he's not only picking a fight with China, by the way. We should mention Europe, where he said some things about NATO, about it being, you know, it was really founded a long time ago, it's obsolete, and it's really something for the Germans to impose unfair trade deals on the U.S. I'm not sure how he figures that, but that's his thinking. So that kind of chips away at the NATO alliance. Probably people in places like Estonia are kind of worried about that. We'll have to see how that works out. And Europe is really in turmoil right now because there's all sorts of political stuff going on there, elections coming up, that kind of thing. So it's actually, I think it's kind of counterintuitive for many people to see the U.S. dollar crack like this and the British pound go higher, because Britain's moving further and further toward that Brexit, that hard Brexit, you know. They actually talked about it again just today. And so you would think that would send the British pound lower. No, it doesn't. In fact, the British pound is going higher, I guess because people think the bad news is priced in. But I think it all comes back to the fact, really, that the market was really pricing in a lot of optimism on Trump's victory. They thought that things were going to improve. They certainly thought there was going to be more spending, and they therefore thought the Fed would be hiking interest rates. However, the Fed may not hike interest rates as much as wanted, and if anyone has enough memory cells to remember back a year, you know, what happened, well, actually a little more than a year, last November, not November 2016, November 2015, you know, then they were speaking about 4 hikes in 2016. Did we get that? No, we did not. We got 1. Now they're speaking about 2 or 3 hikes in 2017. Will we get that? I would guess not. And so we're going to have to see a lot of optimism come out of the dollar, and so that, I think, is a tailwind for things like precious metals now.
And, of course, if you're not sure what somebody's going to do, people run to gold, don't they?
Yeah, that's the other thing. You know, with all the worries going on in Asia, I mean, one more thing we can talk about, and this is just fascinating to me. President Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who comes from Exxon, he said that the U.S. would not allow China to continue building artificial islands in the Spratly Islands area of the South China Sea. And he said they can't continue building those islands. They can't keep putting military stuff the way they've been. They pretty much have to give up on it. China shot back and said if they try to do anything with us over that, that means war. Now, that has to worry people. And the other thing that has been going on is top Republicans, not just Trump, by the way, other top Republicans have been having diplomatic relations with Taiwan. And, I mean, speaking to Taiwan on a diplomatic level. And China is just thunderstruck by that because we'd agreed to the one China policy before. So China put out a statement through their official news organs. I don't know how much play it got in the West, saying that if the Americans keep this up, we might have to speed up our reincorporating Taiwan into the mainland. Now, do we want to go to fight a war over China? Probably not. But again, that's a risk that has to be priced into the market. And so there's a lot of stuff that's making people uncertain, a lot of it driven by tweets or just people kind of talking off the cuff. One thing people have to remember, though, and just before everyone starts hiding under the bed, don't hide under the bed, I think there are risks and stuff, but we could swing back the other way and have risks overstated. And just because someone tweets something doesn't mean they want to follow it up with official U.S. policy. So we were extremely complacent, saw an extremely complacent market. Frankly, a correction here would not surprise me. And we could see the pendulum swing back the other way. But I think that when that big fear comes, when we get to that point of maximum fear, people should not be hiding under the beds, because that will be a buying opportunity, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to blow up the world. And you might have trade tips and stuff, but you still have to sell goods. And so I think things could work out. Just use the fear to your favor. That's the kind of thing you should be doing in this market.
I've heard, too, the Chinese really don't want a war either, because their main thing is business. They want business opportunities. You blow up your biggest trading partner, the U.S., who are you going to do business with? Right.
They're actually talking more about, things they could do financially. But as you pointed out, we do have them over a barrel. We buy them a lot more stuff from them than we do from elsewhere. And so I think it'll come down to it. I don't think pushing the Chinese to a new line is necessarily a bad thing. I don't want your listeners to think I'm against that. I think that perhaps we've been too accommodating in the past. I think that we could take a stronger line against China. It's just that everyone has to realize that a lot of this is like shadow boxing, and you take a new position, but, you still do business. Hopefully that works out. And so it's hard to make those adjustments. And so it'll be very interesting to watch. It's a very good time to be in precious metals. As I said, all that optimism rushed out of that market, rushed into the global stock markets. Now we're seeing money flow back the other way. And this takes place against the big global picture in precious metals, which is that we have hit peak gold, we have hit peak silver. Production from gold and silver mines is going to go down year over year. And so naturally, when production goes down and the market remains fairly constant, then you have a situation that tends to be supportive for prices. So we'll see how that goes too.
So apart from gold, what's going to happen with oil with all this talk?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I found the oil market very optimistic lately, and I have positions in stocks which are bullish on oil. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm a big bad bear. I try to be extremely selective. But even if everything works out the way that OPEC is planning, there's still a 1 billion barrel overhang that has to be worked out in the market. There's incredible amounts of oil in storage around the world, where everyone's just been stocking up when prices were so cheap, especially in Asia and places like that. And the Saudis came out with an amazing thing today. They were commenting on how the agreements to keep oil production at slightly lower level seems to be working, and that's really supportive of prices, and it is. There's no disputing that. But at the same time, the Saudis said, and this is their oil minister speaking, he said, well, things are going so well, maybe we can wrap it up at the end of July. What does that mean? How can you possibly wrap things up and go back to pumping the way you were at the end of July? That doesn't make any sense. So we'll see what kind of agreement they come down the road. Maybe the Saudis are just trying to put some more pressure on the Iranians, who seem both sad and happy about the whole deal. But the Iranians are going to have their hands full anyway, because one thing that the Trump administration is talking about is unilaterally undoing the deal on the Iran nukes deal, and so will they follow through on that? That has to be a focus for the Iranians. So if this is a move by the Saudis to put pressure on Iran, it's probably not needed at this time, but maybe that's just what the Saudis think. Maybe they think come the end of July, we'll have everything settled and we can all start cranking up again. But really, there's a billion barrels in storage around the world right now. It's not going away anytime soon. The Saudis have to know that. So I'd really like to know what they're up to on that one.
Yes, and perhaps a lot of people aren't aware of the acrimonious relationship between the Saudis and Iran.
Oh, they hate each other. They are completely different sides of the same religion, and do not have anything nice to say about each other. And the Saudis accuse the Iranians of all sorts of evil things, including in places like Syria and stuff like that. The Iranians keep pointing out rather loudly that money from Saudi Arabia goes to fund global terrorism, and they're right. And so these two powers in the Persian Gulf do not like each other. That's actually been to our favor in the most recent past. But again, you don't want things to get too out of hand there. One sector that should do well, I think, is that in the U.S., I should say in North America, because you have a North American listening audience, we are really seeing costs come down quite a bit in drilling for oil. And so that makes it easier for companies to make money at lower prices per barrel. And so when we see a move in oil up to, say, 53, a company that previously couldn't make money at that price can now make money at that price. And even if the cost of a barrel of oil dips below 50, they can still make money because their costs have been really going down so much. So this is good for the oil drillers, or at least select oil drillers. They can do extremely well in this environment because they are going to be needed. They need those companies to go out and drill more wells because now they can actually sell the stuff, especially with U.S. oil exports, U.S. natural gas exports really ramping up. And so that's an exciting area of the market to be in, I believe.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Sean, what's going to happen with auto manufacturing? We've seen General Motors announce that it's going to open up a $1 billion plant, reduce its production in Mexico. Trump threatening taxes on BMWs, on Canadian-built cars. Will the U.S. have to produce its own vehicles?
Well, I am glad to see more U.S. production coming back to the U.S. and give Trump credit for that. He did strong arm GM and Ford to making some adjustments, not as big as he'd like to pretend, but some adjustments to where they're going to actually manufacture things going forward. And I think that's a very good thing. So, I am happy about that, and yeah, he did knock BMW and like all that stuff. So I think he's trying to be the lead booster of U.S. industry, which is not a bad thing for a president to actually do. That's good. And so I don't know how much it'll actually change things. I think the biggest change coming to all these things is automation. And really, Trump's team doesn't seem to have an answer for that. In fact, I just read the other week that plant that he saved in Indiana, the one that makes air conditioners, some of the money that company is going to get, they're actually going to put toward automating the plant even faster. And so you'll see jobs go away because of that. That's a big trend in the industry. And I think that's more of a threat to U.S. jobs, North American jobs, than any kind of trade agreement we have with China or Mexico or any of that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But I am hopeful. I'm happy to see him putting the strong arm on companies to put more manufacturing in like North America. Certainly it's not helping the Mexican peso, but if you're a tourist, that's not bad either, because now you can go have a cheap vacation down in Mexico. I'd like Mexico to be stable too, though, by the way. They're our southern neighbor. We need them stable. You know, we don't need drug gangs running amok down there and stuff like that. We need stability and growth down in Mexico, just like we need it here in the States and in Canada as well. So let's hope that works out.
Do you think Trump realizes how integrated manufacturing is between Canada and the U.S.? They can't make a widget without Canadians providing the nuts, bolts, and washers.
No, he seems to have a very 1950s view of how industry works. Now, maybe he'll put in smart people who will actually tell him the difference, you know, or maybe not. I mean, you and I talked about some of his picks. I like some of his picks. I think we've also talked about that. I like Rick Perry. I think he's a great or he will be a great energy secretary. But some of the people Trump's putting in there are, you know, you just have to shake your head. You're kind of wondering. So he does have a 1950s view of like industry, but that's going to have to give way to the harsh reality. And the reality is it is a very integrated world, and things go back and forth across the border all the time. And so we'll see how he adjusts to it. Probably he'll continue the tough rhetoric and not follow through on the actions. That's kind of what I've been thinking with Mexico, by the way. I mean, he's had some really tough talk on Mexico, and he strong-armed companies because of it. But is he really going to put in these new tariffs at the border, which would be in violation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, by the way? I mean, so legally he couldn't do it. Could he just throw that out the window? That's a huge step. I don't think he could. And so I think we'll continue to see tough talk and enjoy it while it lasts. One thing it's good for, and this brings me back to something we were talking about earlier, is gold and silver miners that operate in Mexico. Why? Because their costs are in Mexican pesos. They're like paying salaries in Mexican pesos, which is one of their biggest costs. And they sell gold in dollars, right? So this is great for them. If you can find a company that mines gold and silver, or either one of the metals, or other metals for that matter, down in Mexico, this is a great time to be owning them, because their next quarterly profit statement should be quite good. Their costs are going down, and the prices they're receiving for the metals are going up. So that should work out very well.
What would you pick right now, gold bullion or gold stocks?
Oh, definitely gold stocks. Gosh, I've been watching the move. It's very, very nice. Now, people always they want to own the metal for safety, and I agree with that. I own metal for safety too. But when I'm looking at speculative plays right now, you know, there are some great gold miners that have been beaten down with a shovel, and they are at bargain basement prices, especially if we see this turnaround in prices continue. This is when you want to pick those things up. So I like the miners right now. I really do.
I know production costs have really come down. I remember a few years ago, everybody said you can't make money producing gold if the price goes below $1,100. Now I hear $800 you can perhaps still make money or at least break even.
Well, it all depends on the miner, doesn't it? And that's another thing. I think I've mentioned it to your listeners before, but it bears repeating. When the price of gold starts to ramp up again, right? And you might think, well, the one I want to own is the one with the widest profit margin, the one that produces at the cheapest. And so, because they'll make more money. And that's logical, and that's not how the market works. The market rewards those companies living on the edge that were barely profitable or not profitable at lower gold prices, because suddenly they are making a profit, and so they've gone from loss to profit, and that's who gets rewarded the most. So if you want to do some speculation along that, find some that are just barely profitable or not profitable right now, and if you think the price is going higher, you can just tuck a little in your portfolio and watch what happens to those stocks when the price of gold goes higher. Those are the ones with blast-off potential.
Well, Goldcorp just announced today that it plans to up production by 20% while cutting costs by 20% over the next 5 years.
Yeah, they also plan to sell mines in Mexico. I do not agree with that. That company does a lot of good, smart things. It's not my favorite miner right now. That won't prevent it from going higher. I think it's going to do very well. But I don't think that they're going to maximize their profit gains. We'll see how it goes. Let them prove me a liar. You know, there are other big miners that are doing extraordinarily well. I love the moves out of Barrick. They're really doing everything right. I like what's happening there. There's a whole bunch that I could list. I just added First Majestic, which is a miner of silver in Mexico, to my Golden Resource Profit Hunter subscribers 2 weeks ago, and they just announced production today, and good numbers and stuff like that. But what they're really talking about is 2018, and you need a company with vision. You need a company that isn't just going to do well this quarter, but has a plan to keep ramping up and moving things up. And the thing I like about First Majestic, and yes, of course we own the stock, so take it for what it's worth, is it's a company that knows how to make smart, accretive deals. That's another thing you want in a gold or silver miner. Not just someone who's plinking away at one little mine, but who knows how to leverage things and pick up the other properties around them that make logical sense, and can then automate and otherwise lower costs and really improve that whole side of the curve. So I think there are some excellent companies out there. I mean, fantastic things. God, for example, we own Great Panther. And that thing, even when silver was getting hammered, Great Panther was doing great. And now it's doing better than great. Why? Because the management knows how to run a company. That's why. They're making all the right moves. They did do that stock issuance not too long ago, which, as a shareholder, I'm like, but so what? I mean, they knew what they needed the money for. They issued the stock. They had great plans for that money. It'll be used to bring something else online. That makes sense. If you have companies that are issuing shares, make sure that they're using the money correctly. And so you want a company with a plan. You want a company with management that knows how to plan and how to bring things along and knows how to cut costs while they're raising production. And there are a bunch of them out there. I mean, many of the pretenders just got kicked out of the business during that long, grinding bear market. It was terrible. But the good thing is it was a real shakeout. Now we have some great companies that are just running close to the bone. As the price of gold and silver goes higher, their profit margins will do extraordinarily well. And so, I'm really happy with this space right now. Of course, we can see what happens. Maybe the dollar will rebound and I'll be crying my beer next week. I don't think so. It depends on how this week ends. I don't want to say that's it for the dollar yet. I mean, we could have a big reversal, but if the trends that are in place so far this week hold out, we are going to see the dollar go lower, and that should be good for precious metals.
Sean, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist at the Oxford Club. Check out his website, energyandresourcesdigest.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. On YouTube, we're Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Gondard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.